Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about in-bay automatics, how to make them the most profitable, how to modernize them, and in general, best practice for your in-bay automatic. I've taken a bit of a break from the podcast just because I've been so busy. Wanted to get a video out there. Make sure you check the links below for the podcast. I get a lot of feedback. People are really liking the podcast. I hope to get back to it as soon as I get some time. I'm crazy busy giving tours, teaching people about car washes, both tunnels and in-bays. If you need to reach out to me, find me somehow. I'm working on getting all the websites and the training up. I promise we'll get there. So why am I making this video? Get a lot of phone calls, and I see a lot of things in the message boards that, the message boards are part of it. There's a lot of stuff that isn't true, a lot that people don't understand. And I also get calls when people are looking to invest, like, hey, what kind of numbers are we looking at? And in my circle, typically people are making 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of revenue than the average in-bay automatic across the country. That's just normal in my circle. I know a few people that have a single bay grossing $500,000 a year. And a lot of that does have to do with the machine and how you set things up. However, there are a lot of practices that you can apply to any wash, any in-bay. But overall, we will be discussing how to modernize and how to give what people really want and make you more money while providing the customer's true needs. Okay, so let's get into it here. This is going to be a bit of a long video, but this is a very important and informational video of how to make a lot more money with in-bay automatics. So the first thing I want you to think about is the mindset, okay? Anybody who's successful at business thinks win-win. And I know there's a lot of other entities out there. In the past, you have your chemical guys, and I'm not saying they're bad, but we'll get to this. Or your pay station companies, everybody was trying to get the average up in the past. And they weren't thinking from the customer's perspective. And a lot of seasoned business owners, a lot of seasoned in-bay owners aren't thinking of things from the customer perspective. When you think win-win, your whole mindset starts to change. What does the customer really want? Stop trying to get more from them and try to think of how you can provide for more people. Volume. How can you serve your customer better? And I want you to also keep in mind this is a retail environment. In the 50s and 60s, you had diners. Then McDonald's came along. Why was it so successful? Because they served the customer and their genuine needs much better than the diner did. Do you want to sit down sometimes? Sure. I like to sit down. I just did this morning in a local diner for breakfast. They have a great breakfast. But that's a once a week type thing. The rest of the time, I'm very busy. I need something fast. And in America, that's what happened. Things sped up. And those who figured out how to serve that customer provided a win-win. We'll provide you something much faster. You're going to sacrifice a little bit on maybe service, maybe a little bit on food and quality, and maybe a little bit on something else. But overall, we see that you want to be satiated, taste something good, and get on your way. Amazon, another big example. Part of their whole philosophy was how to make everything easier for a customer, how to find the product, how to see the rating, how to get their money quicker and make it easier by having your card on file. It's little things like that. They applied continual improvement methods of taking all friction away, one-click buy, and making things easier for people to just go on. Like, why do I need to go to the store? I don't need that right now. I'll go to Amazon, click it, hit the button, and it's going to arrive at my doorstep. It's going to be delivered to me 24 hours, 48 hours from now. But I want you to think about the mindset. It's how to provide win-wins, how to provide what the customer really wants. And I'm telling you this at the beginning because this is the biggest miss of most car wash owners, both tunnel operators and in-bay operators, and chemical guys and equipment companies and consultants. Not always, but they're trying to, a lot of them have an agenda, right? Not everybody, but a lot of them have an agenda. And some of you may want to make this controversial. I could really not care that much about making it controversial or not, because the point is I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to provide a win-win for you and provide for you value so you can provide for your customer more value, more win-win, and more service for what they really want so you can make more money and they're happier. So who is your customer? Well, there's a big demographic there, but here's what I want you to focus on. Typically, best practice is to focus on the 25 to 75-year-old female. Females have many different check boxes to check. Let's say they have 15 check boxes to check. Guys have like 3 check boxes to check. If you check those 15, you automatically check the 3. When you really focus on taking care of the female demographic, you'll automatically get the male demographic. Also, if a lot of you don't know my stuff, I'm a continual improvement junkie. Someone who completely adopts the methods of Dr. Deming, Toyota, as well as the theory of marginal gains. And there is a little bit of a get with focusing on females. They communicate with each other more often. So you're already getting some extra percentage of word of mouth marketing because they communicate to each other. They're going to communicate when they feel safe and they really like a place. And they're especially going to communicate as survival when something feels creepy or dark, or they're not sure it hurt their car or something went wrong. Because this is what most people are missing. So when you focus on that demographic, you automatically get the other demographic. And in turn, you get a little bit more word of mouth marketing if you're doing it right. What does doing it right look like? Point number 4. By the way, you don't see this on the screen. I'm not going to share this, but point number 4. What are the most important things of a car wash? These are kind of in order. Number 6 is in order. So speed, easy, convenience, safe, comfortable. Comfortable is probably number 1. Okay. And then a clean car. Yes, I think a clean car is about number 6 on the list. Comfortable is probably number 1 or 2. Convenience is way up there. But convenience envelops speed. Comfortable envelops safety. So there's some correlation between all of those. And we'll go through a little bit of this. Let's talk about easy, comfortable, and convenient. Part of that is ingress versus egress, right? When it's way easier to pull into a place and way easier to pull out, more people are going to use your wash. If they don't have to go over a bump for the underbody spray, or there's no rails at all inside the bay, that is safer to people. That's more convenient. That's more comfortable. If the walls are really super nice and white, if things are a little bit wider, a little bit higher, especially a little bit longer, and the whole lot is more breathable instead of a super tight lot, guess what? It's more comfortable. Guess what? Subconsciously, more people are going to use that facility, especially females. What does safe mean to people? Well-groomed, well-manicured landscape. You know, for a female, bright, beautiful, inviting, it matters to them. There's a lot of subconscious triggers, for a lack of a better term, where something that's really well taken care of means there's someone here taking care of things. This is a very safe place. This is thought through. People are here taking care of it, meaning I'm going to get taken care of. I'm safe. I'm not abandoned. This isn't creepy and abandoned. Another little tip is females are on a journey. A lot of guys are looking for a transaction. Females are looking for more of a journey. And if you don't know what that means, that's fine. I don't even know completely what it means because that's a very female mindset. So in general, you hear me talking about this a lot in a lot of my content, is you need to have conversations, very open-minded conversations without correcting, asking more open-minded questions from your sister, daughter, wife, grandma, mom, and your female customers. You need to understand their understanding. That's how you win big in any retail, really. Another thing that is safe is really easy to navigate the vehicle. Open lanes as much as possible. I know this isn't available to everyone at their location. I'm still giving you best practice, right? But if you can knock the curb a little bit more out, you'd be surprised what kind of difference that may make. So easy to navigate. Another thing are vacuums. You don't want the vacuums behind the building. Island vacs are terribly outdated. You know, when someone needs to get to both sides of the cars, they're either dragging the dirty vacuum thing through the car while the kids are in there, or they have to go around, back up, turn around. That is horribly uncomfortable for most people. And when you're busy and you have to get something done because you're in a hurry, and all of a sudden you turn that wheel a little too tight, and then the front bumper cover hits that Ballard, and you're blaming that idiot customer when you made something very difficult. They're in a hurry. Boom vacs, however, you could just pull right in, take a nozzle from both sides, clean it out, and mom could get back on her way. So you're wondering why the tunnel hurt your business. It necessarily wasn't the tunnel. They provided things that were easier and more convenient and more safe for the customer. Shocker. And boom vacs are one of those things. And not going behind a building. A female doesn't want to go behind any building. That's every true crime podcast they've ever listened to, right? They want to be in front of people, on the side of or in front of the wash where they could be seen by the road. It feels safe. The community is there. Obviously, you want it super well lit, clean, ultra clean, a lot of cameras around. That gives the feeling of safety. The operation of the wash itself, open, smooth. A lot of females will tell you this statement that they're afraid they might mess something up or they don't want to do anything wrong. There's a lot to that. When you have a more open environment wherein the signage is easy, even the menu is easier. There's a safety factor there. Basic, better, best, no goofy jargon on your menu. All that is in the soup of convenient and safe. And again, the friction, the rails, all that stuff it's a no-go. That doesn't fit the retail safe, convenient mindset. That's not modern. Okay, let's go on to number 6, stacking and queuing. This is the number one most underrated portion of in-bay automatics. Typically across the country for the past 30 years, you pull into an in-bay automatic, you're at the pay station, maybe a car or two, maybe 3, but usually it's a car or 2 can get behind you. That was the biggest miss in this business for the past decades. People want to get in a line and feel safe. They don't want to look at a location and say, oh, can I get in there? Can I make a right? Can I make a left? Or even if they know the location, they're not sure if a car's going to be in line because maybe the view is slightly obstructed. So they're just going to plan on driving by. What Tunnels did is allow people to get in a line just like fast food. Get in a line, get on your phone, and relax. There is a subconscious safety mechanism in your brain when you're not sure about something. Not sure means fear. Fear means no, maybe later. Again, this is subconscious triggers. When they know they can get in a line, that's a safety mechanism. Oh, that's safe. I'll get in line and relax. If they're not sure they're going to get hit from behind or can make a left in because there's too much traffic and it's a little too tight, they're on their way. And that happens subconsciously. They're not thinking this. It's just, why do they drive by and not pull in? That's why. Now, maybe 25% of the time, you can flip the lot. There are deep lots out there where originally they were pulling in, and you can flip the lot and bring them around from the back and then out the front. And then you could even extend your dryers further out, potentially. Now, you have to think about how you're going to bring them around the back. Can you knock off a self-serve or two? So it's easier for the females to see like where they're going. It's more well lit. It's more inviting. You have to think this through a little bit, but oftentimes, if it's possible to flip the lot, it's usually a good idea. Not always, but usually. Now we're going to talk about another very important thing is speed. Besides maybe getting a massage, every other retail experience on the planet, people want in and out faster. A car wash is a service. If our car could remain clean forever, we would never need a car wash, and people need to get in and out fast. The mindset for the past 20, 30 years, the customer needs to get their money's worth, was something that pay station companies, again, chemical companies, a lot of other people try to put their Baskin-Robbins 32 flavors into the menu. And it may have worked 15, 20 years ago, but we didn't have Tunnels knocking out monthlies like we do now. And if you're wondering how those single bays do 50,000 cars a year, 60,000 cars a year, this is the biggest part of it. It's stacking, it's flow, it's monthlies, and it's speed. Now, again, let's say you have some seasoned customers in there and you have some old retired guys. There is still going to be your occasional retired person who wants to stay in there forever, but that's the super minority now. Most people, moms and dads and business people, we're on the go. We need in and out. We don't want to wait around. How do you combat some of the expectations? Well, you combat it by when you rehab your area or your wash, rename it something express, something fast, something powerful. And then you keep the menu simple. This is the easiest way to do this. Basic, better, best, basics, wash, rinse, dry. The middle might have the better, your underbody spray and a sealant. And the top, you replace the sealant with a ceramic and fire them out the door. Maybe you have an extra round of pre-soak or a foam that's a pre-soak in the top one as well. The point is, you can, when you name and market the wash properly and you make the menu, the most important thing people miss is you make the menu super simple and only a couple bullet points, well, then a fast wash is expected and it's accepted. When you have 5, 10, 15 different things, yes, they expect to be there in 7.5 minutes. But ultimately, they just want a clean car and to know it's protected in some type of way. And yes, we see people getting $17, $18, $20 or more with a 2-minute wash, minute 51 wash, minute 55 wash, 2.5-minute wash. They're still getting $17 to $20 at the time of this recording. You know, maybe you're watching this a year later and they're getting $25 or $30 for that. The point is, the price doesn't necessarily have to do with the time. The price has to do with the value. If they feel they're getting a relatively clean car and their car's protected, you punch it out in a minute and it looks good, and they think they got the ceramic, they're good to go. But the great majority of you have way too much on your menu. When you go to a steak place, when you go to a nice restaurant, and there's a meal there, it's seasoned with this and that and has olive oil, this reduction and blah, 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 because you're paying for a very nice meal. That's not the retail fast food type environment. McDonald's and Wendy's and Arby's and Starbucks aren't telling you every single note in their menu. It's a double quarter pounder with cheese. In other words, it's a lot of meat with cheese. That's all you need to know. Chick-fil-A doesn't put every single seasoning on what's on their fried chicken. Are you grasping this? Why do car wash owners think they have to put everything on there? Basic, better, best, have some type of ceramic and something on the top, get them out the door. Now, yes, when it comes to speed, there are certain machines that could genuinely clean a car really good in 2 minutes, 2.5 to 3. So 2 to 3 minutes, really good high-performance machine, ultra-high-performance machine can do that. Not everybody can do that. However, I consult people that don't have those type of machines, and they'll take their 7 to 9 minute wash to 4 or 5. Surprise, they're making more money. They can add a monthly now. They lean down the menu, and everyone is happy. They have less chemicals, using less water, so they're spending less on cleaning the car, and they're washing more volume. Shocker, because it's what people want. They run a relatively clean car, feel it's protected, and fire them out the door. Remember, we're going to go back to the mindset. It's win-win. What does the customer really want? Everything I just said. And you can provide that by simplifying things. This is how you serve your customer better. A clean car, fast. What does a clean car mean? I have a lot of people try to pull this on me. Well, what's a clean car mean to you? I do the white towel test. Well, good for you. You go ahead and do the white towel test and have all your clients, whether you're a consultant or a chemical guy or whatever, you do that white towel test wherever you want. And then come you see my clients who are probably washing 4 to 5 times, not exaggerating, the amount of cars per bay, and it might not pass your white towel test. But the customers are a lot happier. You know why? Because it's a good car, a very good car, and it's out in half the time. So maybe you have an excellent car. Maybe it's a click or two above very clean or clean. Maybe it's 3 clicks better than clean. Well, guess what? The customer wants in and out. That clean is, again, what? Number 6 on the importance level. Go ahead, start throwing things at the TV. I get it. And if all things were equal, if every one of those 5 things before number 6 were equal, then yes, you need to provide a cleaner car. But in my experience, talking to many wash owners and traveling across the country and looking at a bunch of washes, very few of you are doing those first 5 things properly. I'm not saying a clean car isn't important. You do need a clean car to very clean car. You don't need excellent. And a lot of you out there, that's your top importance. You're spending all your energy on getting excellent, and you're abandoning the things that are more important. So in other words, McDonald's hired you as a manager, and you're importing the most expensive, beautiful steaks to make your burgers from scratch. And so when someone pulls up, you have the best burger there is, and the price is a good value, but it takes 20 minutes in the drive-through line. That doesn't work, does it? If you want a restaurant experience, that does work. But let the detailers provide the restaurant experience with all their labor. If you want a smoother, easier, more profitable business, then accept the retail express in-bay model. Fire them out the door, make more money, make them happier, because that's what they really want. Let's go back to restaurants one more time. Let's say there's a local steakhouse in town, okay? And around this steakhouse, so they have a transaction, their average transaction's $100. How many transactions do they have a day? Okay, then a block away is McDonald's. Their average transaction is $15. Then multiply that by how many transactions they have a day. Who's netting more money? Oh, but wait, there's 7 other fast food restaurants in a couple blocks. So not only do you multiply that 15 by all the transactions that McDonald's has versus the one restaurant, so you're already hundreds more transactions, then you're multiplying that by 7 or 10, that many fast food restaurants. More people in our current lifestyle as we speak are busy. They want a relatively clean car in and out. They don't need a special detail experience. Now, you can make that fast experience as special as possible. I'm not saying don't try to make it a little special, but don't let it come at the sacrifice of speed, safety, convenience, ease of use. Is this starting to come together? Good. Now, again, part of that speed is simplifying your menu. So keep that in mind. That's part how you get to speed is by simplifying your menu. But Jason, how do I get a clean car? Let's talk about that menu. Let's talk about speed a little bit regarding chemicals. So You might need to modernize your chemicals. You might need to change your philosophy. Oh my gosh, you've been doing this 20, 30 years. There's no way I'm going to change my philosophy. My cars come out perfect. Okay, good for you. Anyway, for everybody else who wants to get a relatively clean or very clean car out in as fast as possible, there's a couple things you can do. So first of all, a lot of people go low-high. That's still very popular. A lot more people are starting to gravitate towards high. So a high pH, alkaline. That way you're getting double the dwell time. In other words, a car comes in, instead of blasting it off, we're just going to put that pre-soak. Let's say we're going the high. Also, some people are starting to use polymers. That seems to be able to speed things up a bit because you don't have to play the high-low game as much to get the car as dry as you'd like it. So keep that in mind. Sometimes modernizing your chemicals will also help. It also helps with more consistency as well. So put that on a shelf. Think about that. Again, I still have a lot of people going low-high, but the toughest thing to get in different seasons for a lot of people is the films. Whether you're in the south, the north, west, or east, it's the road films. And alkalins typically attack the organic chemicals better, the films, the organic chemicals. So consider and split test some washes with just high. In other words, you're doubling the amount of time one pre-soak is on the vehicle instead of having the time of two pre-soaks. And another quick tip to this is when you're using a high or you doubling the same chemicals, never lower the concentration. Because if you have a certain concentration you put on the car first, and then you put another pre-soak, it could even be the same pre-soak, but they lower the concentration, it lowers the concentration of the whole car. And this also goes with making cars wet. You might want to reconsider the blasters, depending on the machines you're using. We want to get that chemical on the car dry. Going back to the basic philosophy, lots of dwell time, lots of pre-soak, let it dwell, and then work on getting the car clean with your high pressure, and then one wax and fire it out the door. Or some of you, depending on if you have the more modern ultra high performance machines, you're putting the chemical in the high pressure to knock out another step, and then you're spot free and out the door. So to generalize, let the pre-soak as long as possible, get your pre-soak methodology right, and then clean the car with high pressure, with or without a wax, put your wax on it, and then you're spot free and out the door. Don't double waxes on anything. There's no reason for that. Again, because now your menu's simple, right? You're not getting the sealant plus the hot wax plus the ceramic. It's either sealant or hot wax or ceramic or sealant or ceramic or graphene. There's no reason to add the 32 flavors. Are we starting to understand the philosophy a bit? Same with triple foams, a conditioner. You don't need that. Sometimes lighting can add the show, or sometimes there's now pre-soaks that look like a triple foam that are out there. I'm not saying don't use a foam, just don't use unneeded chemicals. Pre-soak the car to work at getting it clean, get it as clean as possible with a wax or a sealant or whatever, and fire it out the door after spot free. Cut out as many passes as possible. Reconsider everything. When you simplify your menu, you just want a clean car with a little bit of protectant on it. And to protect it, we're going to get the monthlies in a moment. Also, when you're running monthlies, consider leaning down your protectant because, especially in a touchless wash, if you're not getting it perfectly clean, you're going to start sealing in those the little bit of film that's left. And then it's going to get much more difficult to clean a car, right? Okay, we're going to step away for that for a minute and talk about marketing and visibility. So first of all, visibility. This is another big mistake. I see this as a tunnel consultant as well. You'll have a logo, a name, and then car wash as 10 to 15% of the road sign. Go back. This is where one thing where people did get it right in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s even, is car wash needs to be the great majority of your sign. Get them off the road by just old school red letter car wash. It's just like a barber pole. Everybody knows it. Now, underneath it, you can have your brand or a logo on top or touchless. If you go in that direction, there's a lot to be gained from that. But car wash on the building, giant red car wash or white or blue, but grab their attention with car wash. Then worry about the branding. Don't think I'm against branding. I'm a branding guy, but it comes secondary compared to getting them off the street. I've been in towns where people have been in the business, the car wash business, 40 plus years. The same company, the same name, the same brand. Oh, everybody knows about us. No, because you know what? That neighborhood where you just put a car wash and you think everybody knows about you, like that neighborhood's all new. None of these people were here 40 years ago. And even if they were, your sign just blends in the background. You can't see no one knows what that name means. And they missed scores of customers because they were too proud of their brand. And there was a little bit of pride and maybe a little bit of arrogance there and didn't realize, well, this is a new area. Even though we've been in the town, this is a new area. And even if you are in the town, a lot of people are new to that same area. You may have had a wash for a while, car wash, and really focus on the branding after they're on location. Marketing. I have a whole module on that for the tunnels, and a lot of in-bay guys can learn from that as well. It'll be live at some point when I get it live. It's a pay-for service. A lot of my training, we'll get to that. Sometimes this might be behind a paywall as well. But right now, just throwing it out there for free. But one thing specific for in-bays is the touch-free, worry-free wash. Keep in mind what most people don't realize, and tunnel guys, close your ears. So the amount of people who want touchless is a demographic like that big, right? The amount of people who don't want to put their car in neutral is that big. It's more than the touchless demographic. There's scores of people that are intimidated by a car in front of them, a car behind them, don't know how to get their car neutral. They never had to do it in the rest of their lives. And when you build a modern in-bay, you grab all those people. But if your in-bay is dark, dingy, slow, doesn't get the car clean, if it's all those things, broke down half the time, well then no, you're not going to compete with a tunnel. But if you have white walls, a super bright location, very inviting, very safe feeling, and fast, guess what? People would prefer that over the tunnel. This is true. You may not like it, but it's true. Okay, back to marketing. Again, I have a whole module on how to market. Basically, to throw a few other things out there, I don't like specials. When you first open, you want to give away a lot of free car washes to get people to try it, especially if you have a modern in-bay that's fast and simple. But for the most part, have really good pricing, really aggressive pricing, and you don't need to worry about specials, especially if you're doing monthlies. That's more gravitating toward the monthlies. Speaking of monthlies, let's talk about pay stations. At the time of watching this, probably 90% of the pay stations, 95% of the pay stations have been around a long time, and they had to try to figure out, they had to make everything backwards compatible to figure out how to properly serve the in-bay automatic customer where there's nobody on site or rarely someone on site, there's nobody out there selling, and you don't have to worry about fraud. And the great majority of them don't work. They don't work the way they should. There's a lot of fraud or there's a lot of kickbacks. The LPR doesn't read it right. There's a company or two that have built their whole platform from scratch to mitigate fraud, add monthly members, and do all this in an unattended space with zero friction. So you need to do your research there. A few things to expand. Fraud is a much bigger deal than people think in the in-bay unattended world. So, and as an example, one that's built specifically for this purpose, they have the same frequency of use per month as a tunnel. In the West, it's about 3 times. In the East, it's about 4 times a month they come in. A lot of the other apps or pay stations that weren't built from scratch have about a 5 to 6 times frequency per month because fraud and other issues, because they had to try to make something backwards compatible. The other thing is LPR. At the time of shooting this, folks, LPR, license plate recognition, is not nearly as reliable as they say it is. I will be giving a tour. This has happened to me. And 2 business owners are in my vehicle, and the one guy looks at his phone, oh yeah, such and such, and her husband just canceled their plan. Why'd they cancel their plan? Because it didn't let him in. And being a tunnel consultant, I'll be in the field teaching people how to sell monthlies at a pay station, trying to get them in a flow. And you know why it's real hard to get them in a flow? Because 1 out of 4 cars, they have to type in the LPR because it didn't read right. Folks, for an unattended space, LPR does not work nearly as consistently as it should. And if you don't have someone out there with license plate recognition as your authorization to get in the wash, you're going to have a lot of people drop. And so not only do a lot of certain pay stations have a higher frequency, but they also have a lot more churn and they don't have as many members. Those in the space where it's been built specifically for that, they had their members last longer. They have a lot more members because it's also easier to onboard instead of downloading an app first. That's another problem with the apps. And then there's geofencing issues where I could just give my buddy my phone for 15 minutes. He can go wash his car. Again, fraud. So do your research there. Know that fraud's a bigger deal than it is. These are 2 most important things. And the second most important thing is license plate recognition doesn't work nearly as good as they say. And I know technologies are getting better and there's other stuff out there that's getting better for LPR, but it still doesn't work nearly as good as it needs to. And no matter how good it works, when you have a trailer hitched in front of your plate, it doesn't matter. They can't see the vehicle. So there's also RFID, but then again, you need to think about being manned, which is fine if you want to do that. But there's a lot of things to consider there. So keep that in mind for best practice for pay stations. Do your research there. What about pricing for monthly memberships? Same as a tunnel. Get super aggressive. I like normal pricing on the single wash and then very, very aggressive pricing for the monthlies. Why do I like aggressive pricing? Why monthlies in general? Well, folks, I'm going to tell you a little story. So there was I forget the actual numbers, but you'll get the gist of it. They were close to what I'm saying, I believe. There was a psychological study done, and they had, this is really important. Listen closely here. They had a musician on a very busy walkway on a college campus, or let's say downtown Nashville, something like that. And people were walking by and they had an empty glass jar. And they measured how many people, what percentage of people put money in the empty glass jar. It was about like 8%. Okay. So then they measured how many people put money in the glass jar when there was already money in the glass jar. It jumped to like 16%. Holy smokes, that's a 100% increase. Are you serious? Just by having some money in the glass jar, I could double my revenue? Sweet. But wait, there's more. Then they measured how many people put money in the glass jar who noticed the person in front of them put money in the glass jar. It jumped to like 46% or something like that. It was exponentially more. Why do I tell you this? This is what a lot of in-bay operators miss. Monthly plan, why would I do that? Because let's say you have a 8,000 car traffic count, and if 48% more people are going to pull into your location when there's a car actually coming out of the dryers or someone at the vacuums by the road because it's free advertising, they're way more likely to pull in. So you just virtually took your 7,000 car traffic count and made it a 21,000 car traffic count. Because if you have like 250 to, let's say you have 300 people on your monthly, if you do the math in a 10 to 12 hour window, every 15 minutes, a car is coming out, and they come in 4 times a month. Every 15 minutes, a car is coming out that wouldn't be coming out before if you didn't have the monthly. So again, every 15 minutes, a little advertising car is coming out, and that many more people will pull into your wash. And when you put your vacuums by the road or out front, and mom's using a vacuum or somebody else is using a vacuum because it's safer, well, then not only do your memberships bring more people in, and then your vacuums bring more people in. So when you do these best practices, do you see how this expands? Do you see how people are trying to buy 15, 20, 40,000 car traffic count lots when they can spend half the price on double the size because it's easier, it's breathable, it's safer, it's more comfortable, it's safer, and they're knocking out stupid numbers because they have a monthly. And busyness creates busyness, just like someone putting money in the glass jar in front of you, a car coming out of the wash that has a strong monthly, and vacuums that are easy to get to, brings in more business. See how this is all coming together? And it's simple. It's not that hard, but activity creates more activity. This is why monthlies work very well in the in-base space, but they can't wait. Sorry, folks, that's one thing that's going to be a caveat. If you do 7 to 9 minute washes, forget the monthlies. It depends on your stacking. You can have I've seen successful monthlies with 4 to 5 minute washes, depending on the flow of the lot. I've seen super successful monthlies with the 2 to 3 minute wash. Volumes are just outstanding. Stacking still helps. Long base still help. But this is why, going back to my original statement of why I get very aggressive for the monthlies. We want as many monthly members as possible, then start creeping up your prices once a year or so. But hit it strong, hit it hard. Make it a no-brainer for them to onboard. The same with tunnels. I teach the same stuff in tunnels. Worry about raising the prices later. Hit them hard with a very good value. Let's talk about long bays for a second. This is something that makes me laugh on the message boards. So technically, you only need a 35-foot bay, 30-foot bay. Okay, a 55-foot bay is great. You don't need anything more than 55 feet because one car could be at the dryers when the next one pulls in. That's not reality. We're dealing with humans. That's what this whole little course is about here. We're dealing with humans, and humans don't want to feel like they're pushing the other human out of the way, or they don't want to feel they're going to do something wrong. So when you have about a 75-foot bay and someone in the wash bay, it clicks on, the buzzer beeps, and they see that the dryer timer all the way over there clicks on, they don't want to lose their time. They throw that car in gear and they fire out that bay. And then they are so far out of that bay, the next car is comfortable enough to pull forward and get their wash. So even though technically, if you measure everything out, 55 is more than enough. In reality, that's not true. So in a 75-foot bay, depending on your machine, I see people washing 25 cars an hour in a 75-foot bay. Again, that's an ultra high performance, reliable machine with off-board dryers at the very end of the bay. And if you build that whole lot like a tunnel, maybe a single long bay, that's where you can get this 40 to 60,000 cars a year out of a single long bay. So people looking to build a double or triple, and they're used to their machines tapping out at 18 to 24,000 cars a year, you could spend less money on a beautifully long single bay. Something to keep in mind. Or in certain parts of the country, you could buy some of these old tunnels that private equity has no interest in, because the traffic count's a bit lower. It's going to cost $1 million to rehab it as a tunnel with a new conveyor. You could get these for a couple $100,000. Yes, this still happens all the time. Not as much as it used to, but it's still happening in certain parts of the country. Sorry for you where this doesn't happen. Spend $500,000 rehabbing the site, and all of a sudden you can knock out 30, 40,000 cars a year. I would say almost minimum, and potentially hit the 50 to 60,000 mark if you know how to do these best practices and market a bit. Again, this is providing you have the right machine, right menu, doing everything right. But these tunnel in-bay conversions, I haven't seen one that's less than 30,000 cars a year. But again, they're still using a lot of best practice principles. That all going to say, that's why long bays are important. If you're building new, you want a 75-foot bay. If your lot allows for it. Totally understand. There's a lot of constrictions. Totally get it. And we're going to go back to flow for a minute. Speaking of long bay, why is flow so important? So we're going to stop talking about car washes for a minute and again, get back to retail, making real money. So look at your average Starbucks across the country, no matter where you're at in the country. Your typical, not all of them, your typical Starbucks has the A++ location, right? They're in a corner. There's a lot of traffic. But what's the deal? Can you always get to where you want to go after you get your coffee? No, because they stuck the corner lot that has all the crazy traffic and you can't get to where you need to go. That's a problem. How tight is the lot to navigate? It's real tight to navigate. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel safe because the lot's so tight. I'm afraid this person's going to back out. This person's going to come in. Starbucks spent their money in trying to get what they thought was the A+++ location. And at the time, when nobody could compete with them, it worked until someone thought, I think we could do this a little better by adjusting one thing. So if you go to your average 7 Brew, they'll be a couple blocks away. Not on a corner, deeper lot, double line. And what's the difference between 7 Brew and Starbucks? Easy, safer, more comfortable, more convenient. Some might say the coffee's better. I don't know. I don't have a palate. It tastes all the same to me. Again, throw some tomatoes and stuff at the screen. But it's not the coffee, folks. It's safer, easier, more comfortable. Ingress, egress. It flows better. Please absorb what I'm trying to tell you. 7 Brew has figured out a secret. And because of that, they've gotten a giant injection of money from BlackRock. Flow, easy, safer, more convenient, trumps A+++ location. Okay, let's start to put some of this together. So you're looking at building new, right? There's still a lot of sites to rehab, no matter where you're at in the country. But sometimes there isn't. So I get calls all the time. They're looking at these crazy locations, 20, 30,000 car traffic count. The land costs this much, and it's going to be real tight to get them in because there's so much traffic. Or you can go down the road a bit, maybe way down the road, and have a C site, a B- site with a 7 to 12,000 car traffic count. But because of that, you can buy more land that's way more breathable for less money, and you can invest less money for a much better piece of property where you can create a very flowy environment where it's easy to pull in and out, easy to put the vacuums on the side or on the front. And it's comfortable for mom and dad and everybody who's super busy to pull in, vacuum out their car real quick, go through the wash, vacuum out, touch it up, and leave. It's comfortable. It's big and beautiful. And you paid as much or less for the piece of land. Everybody wins. Oh, by the way, that 8,000 car traffic count, because we're adding monthlies and we have vacuums, that are wonderful for people to use. And maybe we have a mat washer that's awesome. Well, it's always busy now because you have great monthlies too. So you just remember the glass jar experiment. You just turned that 8,000 car traffic count into a 24,000 car traffic count because you have created a value. You've created a win-win. You're serving the customers so well, and you have a more flowy lot where they want to go to your lot instead of the super tight corner that supposedly has all the traffic, but is very difficult and challenging. It doesn't feel safe because they're afraid they're going to hit something. There's too much going on. Think about that. Okay, a few more random things you probably didn't think about. Open signs. Old school open sign, like LEDs, and then they go close if you have to shut it down for maintenance or something like that. Believe it or not, that creates a lot of safety as well because people are used to in-bays being broke down, dirty, dingy, all the stuff I said before. And when they see an open sign, that gives people great confidence at night and it's right above the pay station. It's a LED open sign. When you see that, and it's a sign where they subconsciously know if it was closed, it would go closed in red, but green is open, it gives them way more confidence to pull on the lot. Again, subconsciously, open sign and the right open sign, I'll pull in. I have confidence it's open, not some random little open sign that's at the coffee shop down the road and 5 days out of 7, the employee forgets to turn it off. An LED open sign that says red closed when it's closed, green open when it's open. You can tie it into the pay station typically or into the machine. You put in a maintenance node, it'll say closed. It also allows you to super cold or certain environmental things where you do need to close the wash, hit close, they have confidence. Okay, it's closed now. That helps me out instead of pulling all the way in and finding out it's closed. Then great frustration because I'm what? I'm busy. That's creating a service for your customer, communicating with them. Also consider like a grand arch above your pay station. And that only helps protect your pay station, but also the tunnel guys and all this big money in tunnels has helped create a certain expectation. So that's another visual cue. This is a modern wash. And it can still be an in-bay, but a nice big awning over your pay station, whatever clearance you have, and that little open sign there. Let what others spent in marketing work for you. A few other quick tips. Ratings are still underrated to this day. You have to be proactive in getting ratings. When you can, talk to your friends, family, run campaigns, do what you can to get your ratings real high because that's how people, that's a much more powerful psychological trigger is we trust our peers more than we trust the business. And we should because our peers have nothing to gain, right? We think. Story for another time. But ratings are still underestimated to this day. And another thing to keep in mind for in-bay operators, I just have a bunch of random notes on the bottom here, is for having someone on site. In-bays, a proper in-bay should be able to work beautifully with nobody there. Again, especially female demographic, they do appreciate someone being there. It doesn't have to be all the time, but often, especially the first year or two you open, if you're spending some good money on building a nice modern in-bay, or you're a beautiful single bay, long bay, or you're doing a double, triple, quad bay, a quad bay with the modern equipment, you can compete with a tunnel all day long. It's about the same price, and you don't have to worry about your labor. But Jason, you just said you need labor. You don't need it. It helps. So your first year or two especially, having someone out there or someone keeping the lot super clean, but most importantly, again, a little bit more for the female demographic, they like to know someone's there in case something goes wrong or they don't know what to do. It's good to have someone there that can help. It does add a little bit of juice to the location. But the beauty of an in-bay is they get sick, call off, or go on vacation for 3 weeks. It's running just fine without it. It's just a bonus how to ramp up your business a little faster, a little stronger. But the beauty is, and this is the beauty with a modern in-bay, is you don't have to worry about the labor at all. Something goes wrong, it's running just fine by itself. I think that went well. Okay, so this is some best practices, how to build a modern in-bay, how to rehab an in-bay. Again, we're just touching the surface here. The link's below. Please check out the podcast. The podcast is great. I'll try to do more. And if you're interested in training, I'll get the second version of the course up as soon as possible. It's just reality right now. Working 7 days a week. I'm working on it, folks. I appreciate your grace there. Let me know other subjects you want me to cover. Comment, snide remarks, anything, throw them on the bottom. Questions, find me. Not in real life. I prefer email or phone. Unless you bring a cupcakes. Go ahead. Okay, that's all for now, folks. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time. It's the most valuable thing you own. That wasn't meant to be a teaching moment, but it is. Your time is the most valuable thing you own. So thank you for it. and provide that service by not taking too much of people's time with your wash. Have a great day. Thanks again.